Hey guys, so far this week we have been figuring out how to determine absolute advantage and comparative advantage for both input problems and output problems. This next thing only is all about output problems. If this is tons of shoes and tons of cloth being produced, then we can have a trade agreement and determine which trade agreement is best for both parties. So remember, when countries specialize, they are producing only that thing. So when you determine who has comparative advantage, they are only producing that thing and not producing the other thing. So here we have China, India. This is the same problem that we've been working on for a couple of days now. And this was the results when we determined if it was an output problem and then who has comparative advantage. Just to refresh your brain, China can produce either 3 shoes or 12 cloths. India can produce 2 shoes or 5 cloths. It looks like China can produce more cloth and shoes than India, so they have an absolute advantage. When it comes to a comparative advantage, remember this is an output problem, so the other number comes over. For 3, the other number is 12. 12 over 3 goes in this box. I wrote it down right here. For 12, the other number comes over 3 over 12. That's down here. And then for India, it's the other number comes over just the same, 5 over 2, and then 2 over 5. And we're looking for the smallest number, the smallest opportunity cost, because that determines who has a comparative advantage, whoever has the lowest opportunity cost. So China, it looks like for the cloth column, who has the lowest opportunity cost for cloth? Well, that would be China at 0.25. Remember, that's 0.25 of a shoe. That's how much they lose of shoes to make cloth. And China has the smallest number. We're comparing 0.25 against 0.4. 0.25 smaller. So it looks like China is producing only cloth. So when it comes to cloth, it's going to be China. So China's producing only cloth. They are producing 12 cloths, not any shoes, because they're going to specialize. For India, if you're looking for shoes, it looks like India has a comparative advantage in shoes because while China has to give up 4 cloths to make a shoe, India only has to give up 2.5 cloths to make a shoe. Remember, it's in units of the other thing, the opportunity cost. And so it looks like India is giving up the fewest amount of cloths per shoe, so they should produce all shoes, no cloths. So that is who's producing what. India is producing shoes and China is producing cloth. But you know that they want some of both. You know, China doesn't only want cloth and India doesn't only want shoes. They're gonna want to trade. So when it comes to the AP exam, a trade agreement is often given to you in a problem. This could be a multiple choice problem. This could also be an FRQ type of problem. A trade agreement is given and you have to determine if this trade agreement is good. If this trade agreement is lower opportunity cost than what the nation would have done on their own. Remember, here are the numbers of what they would have done on their own. You know, China would have given up 4 cloths to make a shoe. India gives up 2.5 cloths to make a shoe. China is giving up 0.25 of a shoe to make a cloth. And then India, if they were to do cloths on their own, they'd have to give up 0.4 of a shoe to make a cloth. So we have to determine who's giving up less, if the trade agreement's costing them less than what they would have done on their own. So let's say the trade agreement that is given is, in a problem, is the 1 shoe equals 1 cloth, meaning China makes only cloth, India makes only shoes, and they're going to trade. I'll give you 1 shoe if you give me a cloth. Well, I'll give you 1 cloth if you give me 1 shoe. That's the trade agreement that's given. We have to now see if this is good for China, good for India, neither, or both. So we have to determine 1 shoe equals 1 cloth. That's what it's going to cost them. Is that better than what they would have done on their own? So let's look at China first. China's producing only cloth. They don't have to buy cloth. They're going to have to buy shoes from India because they're not making any. India is making shoes. They don't have to buy shoes. They're going to have to buy cloth because that's what they're not making. They're going to have to buy it from China. So let's look at China first, who produces only cloth. And so that means they're going to have to buy at this trade agreement, shoes. Well, what would they have done on their own? If China was making shoes, it would have cost them four, and I'm going to actually put this in units now, 4 cloths. So one shoe in China, if they were to make it on their own, it would have cost them 4 cloths. Now one shoe is going to cost them 1 cloth. So if they do it by themselves, they're going to have to give up 4 cloths to make a shoe. Now this trade agreement, they give up 1 cloth to make a shoe. That's less. It would have cost them 4, but this trade agreement only cost them 1. So China's going to say, that's a good trade agreement. Let's see if it's good for India. India's making shoes. They don't have to pay for shoes. That's what they're making. They're going to have to pay for cloth. So you have to determine if the opportunity cost of when they made cloth is higher or lower than this trade agreement. So let's see. Here's India down here. Here's what it cost them to make cloth, because remember, that's what they're going to have to buy because they're not making any. So the opportunity cost of cloth for India is 0.4 of a shoe. Every cloth that they make, they have to give up 0.4 of a shoe. Now, 1 cloth, they're going to have to give away 1 shoe. So if they want to buy a cloth, it's going to cost them 1 shoe. If they make it on their own, each cloth that they make, they give up 0.4 of a shoe. So would you rather give up 0.4 of a shoe or 1 shoe? I'd say 0.4 because that's cheaper in terms of shoe costs for cloth. So India, they're not going to like this trade agreement because that's requiring them, that's asking them to give up more shoes for cloth than they would have done on their own. So they're going to say no to this trade agreement because their opportunity cost number is less than what they would have done here. So to recap, before specialization, China gave up 4 cloths to make a shoe, 4 cloths to make a shoe. Now with this trade agreement, 1 shoe cost 1 cloth. So that's cheaper than 4. For India, India gave up 0.4 or 2/5 of a shoe to make a cloth. Now with this trade agreement, 1 cloth cost them an entire shoe. Well, they would have done 2/5 or 0.4 on their own. Why would they give up 1? So this is an advantageous trade agreement for China, but it is not a good trade agreement for India. They're going to say no to this. So how we're going to practice this, let's get rid of my check marks. I wonder if they're going to go away if I just go to the next slide, but I don't want to chance it, so I'll just erase them. Here is a practice FRQ. I will have a link to this in case you can't see the format of this. It's a little blurry because it's a stretched out picture of an image. So I want you guys to practice this, and then we're going to be posting our answers on this somehow, and we're going to be going over this in tutoring. But here's a diagram that shows the production possibilities curve for 2 countries, Artland and Raylan, using equal amounts of resources. Artland can produce 600 hats or 300 bicycles, whereas Raylan can produce 1,200 hats or 300 bicycles. So at the very beginning, it asks you to calculate the opportunity cost of a bicycle in Artland. B asks if the 2 countries specialize in trade, which country will import bicycles and explain. C, if the terms of trade, okay, here's that thing that we talked about. If the terms of trade are 5 hats for 1 bicycle, would it be advantageous for each of the following? Would it be advantageous for Artland? Like, is he going to like this trade agreement? Is this advantageous for Raylan? Is he going to like this trade agreement? And last but not least, if the productivity in Artland triples, which country has a comparative advantage in the production of hats? So here is an example FRQ. Comparative and absolute advantage questions always pop up on FRQs. You can almost guarantee that there will be a question similar to this. And that's all I have for you guys today. Besides, we're going to practice this FRQ, and then I'm also going to post some practice questions that ask about absolute advantage, comparative advantage, and the last question, it's a doozy. If you can do this question, you are solid when it comes to determining trade agreements. It's a doozy. So good luck. I will see you guys later, and have fun with your trade agreements and determining which one's advantageous.